Imagine building your dream lakeside cabin only for an HOA Karen to call 911, demanding you leave. Except you own the entire county. Stick around for a wild tale of petty power trips, legal smackdowns, and sweet justice. If you love jaw-dropping HOA drama, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for more crazy stories like this one. Let's dive into this lakeside showdown. The sun dipped low over Lake Serenity, casting a golden glow across the water, its ripples lapping gently against the shore where a sturdy modern cabin stood proudly. Ethan Caldwell had poured his heart into this place, a sleek, cedar-clad retreat with floor-to-ceiling windows that drank in the view. After years of corporate grind, he'd cashed out, bought this slice of paradise, and through a clever series of investments, quietly acquired nearly every parcel of land in the county. He wasn't just a homeowner, he was the county's backbone, holding deeds to thousands of acres, including the land beneath the Serenity Shores Homeowners Association. But Ethan kept that detail close, preferring the quiet life over flaunting his influence. The cabin was his sanctuary, built to code, fully permitted, and entirely his. Or so he thought. Across the lake, in the manicured cul-de-sacs of Serenity Shores, a storm was brewing. Linda Grayson, the HOA president, had made it her life's mission to enforce every rule in the association's 87-page handbook. Her eagle eyes spotted Ethan's cabin from her lakeside deck, and she bristled at its existence. It wasn't part of her HOA. It didn't have her approval, and worst of all, it was an eyesore, at least in her mind, with its modern angles clashing against her vision of cookie-cutter colonials. Linda's morning began with a furious email to Ethan, demanding he submit his property for HOA review or face consequences. Ethan, sipping coffee on his porch, read the email and chuckled. He deleted it, assuming that was the end of it. But Linda wasn't one to be ignored. She escalated quickly, rallying her HOA board, a clique of equally officious neighbors who thrived on control. They sent certified letters citing vague bylaws about community aesthetics and unauthorized structures. Ethan ignored these too, his ownership of the land giving him unshakable confidence. The letters piled up unopened in his recycling bin. Linda's frustration grew, her face flushing redder with each unanswered missive. She wasn't used to being dismissed. By week's end, she'd had enough. She stood on her deck, binoculars in hand, watching Ethan unload lumber for a new deck extension. That was the final straw. She dialed 911, her voice trembling with self-righteous fury, reporting an illegal squatter on private land. The dispatcher, confused but obligated, sent a deputy to investigate. When Deputy Harris arrived, Ethan greeted him with a handshake and a bemused smile. He handed over his property deed permits and a cup of coffee. Harris, a local who knew Ethan's name from county records, apologized for the hassle and left. Linda, watching from her side of the lake, fumed as the patrol car drove off. She wasn't done. She called an emergency HOA meeting, where she convinced her board that Ethan's cabin was lowering property values and disrupting the community's harmony. They hired a lawyer, a slick attorney named Greg, who specialized in bullying non-compliant homeowners. Greg sent Ethan a cease and desist letter, threatening lawsuits and fines. Ethan, now mildly annoyed, tossed it aside. He wasn't worried. His ownership of the county gave him leverage few could match. But Linda's persistence was starting to grate. She began rallying neighbors, spinning tales of Ethan as a rogue outsider flouting their sacred rules. Some bought into her narrative, driven by fear of change or envy of Ethan's pristine lakeside lot. Others, tired of Linda's reign, stayed silent, sensing a bigger fight looming. Ethan, meanwhile, continued his work, installing solar panels and planting native trees, unaware that Linda was planning her next move, a public confrontation she believed would force him to bend. The stage was set for a clash that would ripple across Serenity Shores, and Ethan's patience was wearing thin. The next morning, Linda escalated her campaign. Armed with a megaphone and a clipboard, she marched to the edge of Ethan's property with a small entourage of loyal HOA members. She stood at the boundary line where her manicured lawn met Ethan's wildflower meadow and began broadcasting her grievances. The cabin, she declared, was an abomination that threatened the neighborhood's prestige. She cited non-existent zoning laws and fabricated noise complaints, her voice echoing across the lake. Ethan, working on his deck, paused to listen, his jaw tightening. He wasn't one for public spectacles, but Linda's stunt was drawing a crowd. Neighbors gathered, some nodding in agreement, others whispering doubts about Linda's obsession. Ethan chose to ignore her, hammering nails with deliberate calm. But Linda wasn't satisfied with being ignored. She contacted the county planning office demanding an investigation into Ethan's permits. To her shock, the office confirmed everything was in order. Ethan's cabin complied with every regulation. Undeterred, she pivoted to a new tactic: environmental complaints. She claimed Ethan's construction was disturbing the lake's ecosystem, citing suspicious sediment in the water. She filed a report with the state environmental agency, hoping to tie Ethan up in red tape. The agency sent an inspector who found no violations. Ethan had taken meticulous care to protect the shoreline. Linda's face twisted with frustration when she received the report. She wasn't used to losing. Meanwhile, Ethan began to feel the weight of her harassment. His quiet retreat was becoming a battleground. He considered confronting her but decided to play the long game. He reached out to a friend, a local attorney named Clara, who specialized in property law. Clara reviewed Linda's letters and laughed. They were legally toothless based on HOA bylaws that didn't apply to Ethan's land. But Clara warned that Linda's tactics could escalate further, especially if she rallied more neighbors. Sure enough, Linda began a petition, circulating it door to door, demanding Ethan's cabin be demolished. She framed it as a community crusade, painting Ethan as a wealthy outsider flaunting his privilege. Some neighbors signed out of fear, others out of loyalty to Linda's iron grip. But a few, fed up with her overreach, began to question her authority. One neighbor, a retired surveyor named Tom, quietly approached Ethan at the local hardware store. He hinted that Linda's own property might not be as compliant as she claimed. Her deck extended past the setback line, a violation of county rules. Ethan filed that away, sensing an opportunity. As Linda's petition gained traction, she organized a community rally at the HOA clubhouse, inviting local media to amplify her cause. She stood at a podium, clutching her clipboard, and delivered a speech about protecting Serenity Shores from rogue developers. The local news ran a short segment, framing Ethan as a mysterious recluse. The attention was starting to wear on him, but it also steeled his resolve. He wasn't just fighting for his cabin, he was fighting for his right to live free of petty tyrants. Clara, sensing the tide turning, suggested Ethan attend the next HOA meeting to set the record straight. He agreed, but not before doing some digging of his own. He pulled county records and discovered something Linda hadn't anticipated. Her precious HOA was built on land he owned. The revelation was a bombshell, one he decided to hold until the perfect moment. As the rally's echoes faded, Ethan prepared for the meeting, knowing Linda's crusade was about to hit a wall. The HOA meeting was held in the Serenity Shores clubhouse, a sterile building with beige walls and fluorescent lights. Linda presided like a queen, her gavel banging for order as neighbors packed the room. Ethan arrived quietly, slipping into a back row seat, his presence unnoticed at first. Linda launched into her agenda, dedicating most of it to the cabin issue. She projected photos of Ethan's home on a screen, circling its modern features with a laser pointer, calling it a blight on their community. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably. Ethan listened, his expression unreadable. When Linda opened the floor for comments, he stood. The room fell silent. He introduced himself calmly, explaining that his cabin was fully permitted and outside HOA jurisdiction. Then, with Clara's coaching, he dropped his first bombshell. He owned the land beneath Serenity Shores, including the clubhouse they sat in. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Linda's face drained of color, but she recovered quickly, dismissing Ethan's claim as unverified. He produced documents, deeds, surveys, and tax records, passing copies to the stunned board members. The truth landed like a thunderclap. Ethan wasn't just a homeowner. He was their landlord. Linda tried to pivot, accusing Ethan of intimidation, but the crowd's mood was shifting. Neighbors began whispering about Linda's own violations, her oversized deck, her unpermitted gazebo. Ethan didn't mention these. He didn't need to. The seeds of doubt were planted. Clara, seated nearby, handed Ethan a folder. He revealed that the HOA's bylaws, which Linda wielded like a weapon, were outdated and legally unenforceable on his property. He offered a compromise. He'd lease the land to the HOA at a nominal rate, provided they dropped their campaign against him. The board, rattled by his revelations, agreed to review the proposal. Linda, humiliated, stormed out, vowing to fight on, but her grip was slipping. Over the next week, neighbors began defecting, tired of her bullying. Tom, the surveyor, filed a complaint about Linda's deck, triggering a county inspection. It was ordered demolished, a poetic twist that left Linda seething. Ethan, meanwhile, returned to his cabin, the lake's calm restored. He'd won without raising his voice, his ownership the ultimate trump card. Serenity Shores would never be the same, and Linda's reign was over. Thanks for diving into this wild HOA saga. If you enjoyed this epic takedown, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more crazy stories. Drop a comment with your own HOA nightmares. We'd love to hear them. See you in the next one.